Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me, as always, is Danny Gillette. We're here at HuskerBigRed.com, and we're here to talk about some Nebraska football, basketball, baseball, whatever else. But the first kind of topic, on my mind, I guess, is recruiting. And I know it's been, Carter Nelson. Everybody's, I guess, been talking about Dylan Raiola, and that's been a big topic of conversation with the number one overall quarterback and recruit. But Carter Nelson's recruitment has also been blowing up, so that's going to be a key topic of conversation. So I guess just to hop right into it, Danny, like how worried are you, or what are your thoughts right now about the recruitment of Carter Nelson?
I'm extremely worried, and I don't buy the thing that, oh, he's a local kid, he'll stay home. I mean, just look at it from, a college kid perspective. A lot of kids want to go, see the world and they don't want to stay home. I know I didn't. And when you got an offer like Alabama, and we've said this about other, recruits before, it's very hard to say no. And I saw I got an offer from Miami the other day. Um, and so his recruitment is really piling up, and I am a little worried. I am a little worried about um, Nelson, and I'm almost willing to say that I feel better about landing Rayola than I do with Nelson at this point.
Yeah, it's there. It's harder to read, I guess. It's not like Carter Nelson's giving interviews to, on 3 and 24/7. Like Steve Wiltfong's not like interviewing Carter Nelson's dad every other week. You know what I mean? So I think there's less information out there because of that. The guy from Husker Online, I'm blanking on the name. Not Callahan, but Brian Munson just got there for an interview actually, and he said some interesting things. I think he watched a basketball game. Carter Nelson plays basketball. Matt Rule's been there for a basketball game. Him and Satterfield and some other coaches were down there for that. And one thing that he said, Carter is very he doesn't give up a lot in information. When he's talking to the media, one thing he did say was that Carter kind of not really lit up, but that he kind of mentioned Notre Dame a little bit more. That was the one school that just according to this one reporter's kind of perspective, that seemed to be a little bit more excitement in his voice was Notre Dame. So potentially I could see that. I don't know if I mean with Alabama and Georgia, like I am worried about them, but as I've kind of said off air, I'm not going to be that worried until he's taken an unofficial visit and like an official visit there. Then I'll be concerned. He seems to me, if I think if Nebraska doesn't get him, he still seems like a Midwest type kid. So I mean Notre Dame and Michigan offered too. I mean don't sleep on them. I mean look what they've done with. I mean tight ends. They're sending a tight end to the NFL almost every year, and they throw to the tight end, and it sounds like that he really wants to be involved in the offense, kind of like Travis Kelsey. So but I feel good about Nebraska. I feel like Nebraska has as good a shot as anybody right now, and frankly, a factor too is whether his parents. I mean, I don't know how much of a decision they're going to have in it, but I'm sure he's going to want to give his parents the best chance to see him play, and the best chance to see him play is going to be at Nebraska because it's not easy, to get to or from Ainsworth really anywhere. So, I mean, that could. I don't know if that's going to be a factor, but it could be.
And I think it's kind of telling that we haven't heard a lot about his recruitment. I've been looking for information, and I've seen, some quotes here and there, but it's not been anything too crazy. So it's kind of interesting to see, his stock, continue to, get noticed, and it's good for the state itself in terms of high school talent. But I mean, I am a little bit worried. I know, like you said, I could see him, maybe Michigan would be a possibility, or you know, Georgia could be a possibility. They have had recent success with tight ends, so that could be. I could very much see him going to Georgia, but I think it all depends. And I'm not going to say I shouldn't say it all depends, but I think a lot of it probably depends on what Dylan Raiola does. I don't think it's like a hey, if you come here, I'll go to Nebraska as well. I just think when you have an opportunity to play with a good quarterback, that's going to dictate where you go because you want to play with a good quarterback. So, I don't think it's like a Raiola comes, Nelson comes type of thing. But I just think Nelson will follow wherever the good quarterbacks are.
Yeah, and see, I do think that'll make an impact, but I don't think it's going to make as big of impact as maybe some people do. I don't know. I just think that I think that every recruitment is different, and I just don't. You know, I know that Texas got some kids after Arch Manning went there, but it's also like, I mean, Texas has had a top 5 class the year before too. So I mean, did they really get a bunch of kids because of Arch Manning, or is it just because they're Texas? You know, so I just don't know how much. I mean, I think it does impact some of it, and yeah, playing with a good quarterback is obviously going to make Nebraska more marketable for him. So I mean, it is going to have an impact on his decision. I think. I just am not one that really buys, recruits making an impact on other recruits. You know, you always see like, oh, I just signed or I just committed and I'm going to start recruiting this guy and this guy. Well, in my experience, that rarely ever works. So I think it comes down to the coaching staff and how he's going to play, how he's going to fit in. Obviously, quarterback is a little bit different because he's going to be throwing him the ball. And, if you're going to be playing with, a potential number one quarterback, that is going to influence your decision, I think, a little bit, just because, if you're thinking about the NFL and doing these different types of things, I mean, obviously you want a talented player throwing you the football. But I don't know that it'll be all that connected. I think it's really going to be about, how these coaches approach Carter Nelson. And so that's one reason I feel confident in Nebraska's ability to win this thing long term, is I just don't think that any coach is going to come in here and outwork Matt Rule for this recruit. And it could be, like we've said, maybe Carter Nelson's like, I just don't want to go to college in Nebraska. I'm a Husker fan, but I just need to get out and see something else. Like there are things that are beyond Nebraska's control, but they're not going to get outworked for an in-state kid in Nebraska. Like I firmly believe that, in this cycle and in the future cycles.
Well, I think, there may be something a little bit to, for example, Arch Manning at Texas, because they went 5-7 in 2021 and 8-5 in 2022. I mean, that's not like national championship caliber, obviously. So I honestly do think in the Texas case, there was, Manning did have a lot of impact on it only because of his talent. And I think with Nebraska, I think Raiola could, kind of help rejuvenate the program. I think the selling point to a lot of these kids was they could be a part of, making something big happen at a program that's kind of been, slightly above average in Texas, making an impact on a program in Nebraska that has, struggled the past couple seasons. So I do think there is something to, the thinking that they can be the ones to flip things around. So, I mean, I don't think, Rayola coming here is all of the reason why kids would come here, but I do think they have a unique opportunity to kind of, make their name within the program, especially if they get things turned around quickly here. And quite honestly, it's the same thing with Matt Rule.
Yeah, and speaking of Dylan Raiola, there's been a lot of interesting news coming out this week, and about his visit to Georgia, if he is going to visit Georgia, and he is going to visit Georgia. That's what his dad said that, last they reported it this morning with Husker Online and Steve Sipple. So that visit is going to take place. I think a lot of people were, trying to like throw Georgia, out of the mix because they're offering other quarterbacks and stuff. Like I just, that Georgia, they're going to recruit other quarterbacks. I mean, especially kids like, if you've got a pretty good in-state quarterback and you haven't offered him up to this point, like, yeah, it might be like a backup type of like the Merklinger kid we talked about last week, but you can't go to that kid in June with an offer and try to win his commitment. You just can't do it. He's ranked 7th in the country among quarterbacks. So I mean, it's more than a Dylan Raiola backup plan. It is, but it's like this is you can't just like recruit Dylan Raiola till June and then lose on him and be like, oh, hey, Jake, like you got to put in some effort, especially that highly touted of a kid. Like it's, like Michigan was in a situation like that last year. They tried to recruit Dante Moore and they missed on him. And there was a pretty highly ranked kid in the state. And like he wouldn't even basically talk to Michigan at that point. So they never even offered him because they just never put any effort into it. So like all the things that are happening with Georgia, I don't think it is a sign that they're not going to get Dylan Raiola. I do feel good about where Nebraska sits right now. But in terms of, just what's happening, he's going to be still visiting Georgia that weekend before. I think USC is still in the mix. And I wouldn't count out Oregon either. Oregon is one team that I would not count out in this recruitment. Phil Knight and the NIL and Dan Lanning, and they've got a ton of like if you look at all the programs on the West Coast, Oregon has as much upcoming talent as anybody, and they've got the facilities, the NIL, they've got all that type of stuff. There's a reason why all the big time players from California and Oregon, tend to go. I mean, from California and Arizona, tend to go to Oregon, a lot of them. So, they're a team that I don't think you can count out. And beyond that, we'll see what happens. But those are the three teams beyond Nebraska that I would be really worried about.
I'll just say that that visit weekend at the end of March is going to feature a lot of high profile players, and it'll be interesting to see if anything comes of that. I've heard that there could be at least one commitment from that weekend, and my guess is that it's going to be Ann Flint, the tight end. But I don't have any insider information or anything like that. He's just been trending to Nebraska. I know you've written a couple pieces on him, but I mean, we'll see what comes of that weekend. It's going to be a big weekend. And speaking of which, and I totally forgot about this until just now, we landed our first commitment of the 2024 class in Roger Gradney. So I am pleased with him. I think he brings a lot of speed to the table. He was a good kick returner in high school, so I'm curious to see what kind of role he'll play at Nebraska. But he was one, and we kind of talked about this on Monday. He kind of flew under the radar. He had offers from Campbell and UTSA, and um, he missed a lot of his last high school season due to injury. But I really liked what I saw. Very fast guy, very speedy guy, and it's a good way to kick off the 2024 class, in my opinion.
Yeah, Gradney was, it seems like he has some ties with Tommy Armstrong, and it seems like Tommy Armstrong played a role in getting him to Nebraska. Once he got that offer, I mean, it pretty much within a day he was committed. So, but yeah, he's, Matt Rule talked about in one of his press conferences, if I have a guy who can run the 100 and, this, and if he can triple jump, I can teach him how to play football. And, this guy runs, I think this was when he was a sophomore, he ran a 10.8 in the 100-meter dash. He's in the 22 range in the 200. I think he's triple jumping like 44 feet up to this, like in the 43, 44 foot range. Played offense, defense, special teams. It sounds like that Evan Cooper wants him as a defensive back. But yeah, I mean, I love this commitment for Nebraska. I think he basically right now he's ranked in the top 24/7 for 24/7 sports, which is, we talked about that the other day too. Texas Tech is his only other Power 5 offer right now, but he's like a legit 4-star kid in the composite. He's actually 24/7 sports in their own rankings that are calculated into that composite. He's like 153. So I mean, this is a really good start for Nebraska, and this is a guy that's got a ton of upside too. So I mean, it's not going to shock me if you start to see Texas and A&M come in with offers later on in the cycle, with the way just, his ranking is and kind of where he could go. But it's a really big time start for Nebraska. And I feel like that Tommy Armstrong connection, I'm sure we'll learn more about that, is good. And, Matt Rule again in Texas, he's showing that those ties are legitimate. And Nebraska hasn't recruited Texas this well since they just left the Big 12. So it's been outstanding to see that work in Texas from this coaching staff.
Absolutely. And Gradney, I believe, if I remember correctly, scored a touchdown on offense, defense, kick return, and a special teams. I think it was a block. So that just speaks to his versatility, and I love the fact that they continue to go into Texas. I think there's a lot of talent down there, and I was honestly pretty surprised by this commitment just because it happened so fast. I believe he visited, or I believe he was offered on the um, 19th and then committed on Monday. So it was a quick recruitment and fast committable offer. And it's good to see uh, the program get a player in the class. And I'll be interested to see what else they do and if they continue to go into Texas, which I'm sure they will.
Also, I think it's a great example of, Matt Rule and this coaching staff's ability to close on recruits. They've done a great job of that, on their visits. We talked about that, the guys, the high school recruits in the 2023 class that took official visits late in that cycle. Almost every single one of them ended up signing with Nebraska. So I mean, this coaching staff just does a really good job of, there's like that 90%, if you talk about that bar of getting to 100% in recruitment, and you're like filling it up, it's really, a lot of teams and staffs can get to that 90-95%, but it's to get that 100%, that extra push. And Matt Rule and these guys are really good at it. I think that bodes well for Nebraska's future.
Absolutely. And, I think it also bodes well for their future in terms of trying to compete with USC and UCLA on their recruiting trail as well. Because their ability to close quickly. I mean, Lincoln Riley is another coach that it's very hard to say no to, especially when you talk about quarterbacks and wide receivers, and so their ability to go in, offer, get the job done will bode well for them in the future as well, because there's going to be a little bit more stiff competition coming around the corner in 2024.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be interested too to see. Speaking of that, where I saw something where it was like projected, rivals in the Big Ten, and I think Nebraska's were Iowa, Wisconsin, and UCLA. If there's like that 3-pod system, so that would make a lot of sense to me. And yeah, you're really going to have to watch out with UCLA and USC, but it could work well on the back end too, because I think that's going to give Nebraska more of a foothold in California. And so really, in a couple of years, I think we're going to see Nebraska landing guys in Texas, California, Pennsylvania, Florida. I really think that Matt Rule is going to have like this thing is a consistent, top 15, recruiting operation. I really believe that. Like
Yeah.
I think Nebraska is actually like going to be in like 3 or 4 years. They're going to be like when 24/7 puts out, its blue chip ratio rankings with the teams that have a shot to win the national championship. Nebraska's going to be one of those, and there's like 16 of them. So I mean, I'm not trying to get carried away with it, but this is going to be a top 15 college football recruiting program under Matt Rule. That's one prediction I feel pretty confident in.
Yeah, and you definitely should, because he's shown that he can recruit at a high level. He identifies areas where he has success. He doesn't just shoot out offers into space. He's calculated with his offers, and I'll be interested to see how much more involved Tony White gets in recruiting, because he recruits the California area. Not that he's just, sitting back drinking a margarita right now, but we don't really need to recruit the California area as heavily as we're going to need to in the coming years. And so I'll be interested to see, if his role as a recruiter kind of expands a bit more with everybody else coming in.
Yeah, he hasn't really been very active on the recruiting trail right now. It seems like Evan Cooper is really the guy that is kind of really getting things going. And then like Omar Hales and some of the other, personnel guys, Mike Wallace, which is good. I mean, you need a big time, like you need a full staff of guys just recruiting, and Matt Rule, Sean Callahan report, he's got like 50 guys on staff total. So Nebraska is actually getting to the point where they have the infrastructure to, recruit at this level. And it takes having guys that aren't on-field coaches to do it, evaluating talent, reaching out to kids, all of that type of stuff makes a big difference. And if you look at, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, yes, they've made the playoff and they've won a bunch of games and they've done all that, but they also spend more money than anybody on recruiting. So it really is, it's like, I'm trying to think. If you invest in something, if you put the money into it, you're going to have better infrastructure. That's just the way it works. If you put money into a bridge, it's probably going to be, if you give it, more bricks and whatever else, it's going to work better. So, I mean, I feel like that Matt Rule understands that. And, that's why I feel really good, obviously, about this, recruiting operation going forward. And, 2024, I think, is off to a very good start. We've talked about that March date, but yeah, I feel like Nebraska's really going to be looking to build some momentum after that weekend.
And it's also nice that we finally have figured out how to use analysts and stuff like that properly, and we're not
Yes.
just screwing ourselves over for a potential bowl bid or whatever. But anyway, yeah, no, I think all the staff is in the right place, all the resources are going in the right place, and oh yeah, there is a big announcement. I believe this afternoon, I believe 1 p.m. Nebraska time. It was tweeted out by some of the reporters yesterday, and I'm just wondering what that announcement is. The governor is going to be there. Trev, I think, is going to be there. So I'm curious to see what the announcement is. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe a concert of some sort in memorial or something like that.
Could be. It's hard to tell. I'm not sure. Yeah, they said an event in the fall, so I really don't know what that could possibly be that is bringing the governor. And yeah, I'm really kind of perplexed on it because, if they didn't say, like an event in the fall, then I would maybe think, NIL or them, building a new facility of some sort. But It seems like they're just announcing like a specific thing. So I'm not really sure, but I'm guessing since the governor is going to be there, it's something that's going to bring some economic boost to the state, would be my guess in some way, shape, or form, and it'll probably be a good thing for the university. But I'm perplexed. I have no idea right now.
Some fan theories, if you will, include
I'm
Bud
down for fan theories.
Bud Crawford boxing match at Memorial Stadium, which would be really cool.
That would be cool.
A volleyball match, but I don't really see where the governor would get involved. I could see where, Crawford would get the governor involved because, I think there would be it's not technically a Nebraska athletics event. It's
Yeah.
more of a, you know, uh, fighting event, but I don't know, I'm interested. I think I'm curious to see what this announcement is, and if you bring the governor out, it's got to be something relatively big. I would think.
Something good, at least, that he
Yeah,
wants to attach himself to. As
yeah,
the politician, you got to be there
yeah.
when they're like shaking hands and stuff.
Smile and wave.
Exactly.
What do they say?
So
Kissing babies, shaking hands, smiling and waving. Yeah. So
that's funny. Well, yeah, we'll see what it is. I'm excited though. It's interesting. I love the fan theories though. I really do. Um, But another thing we don't have a theory about, I guess, is another big game for Nebraska basketball. And actually, I wanted to talk about the women too, because man, the other night Jazz Shelley just absolutely obliterated Illinois, and they really needed that. The Huskers in the latest bracketology are like, they have the first four out. Well, Nebraska's in the next four out, so they were like the seventh out because they've kind of been on a bit of a losing streak. They've kind of been going down while the men have been going up. But you beat the number 25 team on the road by 33 points, and that will get some people's attention. So we'll see if that will get them back into the bubble mix. I think they've got another game this weekend, so before the Big Ten tournament. But the Cornhuskers, the men's team on Saturday, the vault's going to be packed again. I'm sure Minnesota's coming to town. They're last place in the Big Ten, so like I'm a little worried about like a letdown. But I don't know. I feel like this team is just not on cruise control, but it seems like they're just really peaking at the right time. I don't know. What do you think, Danny?
the game's sold out, so that's a good omen right there. And I think as long as they continue to, play at the way they've been playing, sharing the basketball, playing for each other. I mean, Derek Walker and Sam Griesel spoke to the media earlier this week, and they mentioned about this team being a brotherhood and stuff I quite frankly haven't heard in the Fred Hoiberg era before. So as long as they continue to defend well, you know, share the basketball, and as always, make your free throws, then I'm very confident in this game. It shouldn't be an issue. But we saw what happened when Nebraska went to Minnesota. Minnesota took them to overtime, I believe it was in January. So I'm excited. If they can get another win, then things are really, really looking up, and it would put them over 500.
Yeah, and that's I can't remember the last time we've had a over 500 team in basketball. It really hasn't been since Tim Miles was here. I think it just would be another step too, and like this is Nebraska's won a lot of games that they technically weren't supposed to win. In terms of, I don't know if there's a single game they've won in the Big Ten that they've been the favorite in. Outside of maybe the Minnesota game, they might have been a slight favorite at that one, but like Iowa was a favorite here, Penn State, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Maryland. I mean, they've put a lot of upsets. So now can they handle success? Can they manage success? Can they take care of business as the favorite and not as like an underdog? Oh, Maryland just upset number 3. Let's knock them off. Can they do what they're supposed to do on Saturday? That's going to be a big question to me. But yeah, if they keep playing defense, if they keep getting the ball to Derek Walker and Kaisei, I mean those two guys have been playing so well, and it's just going to be fun to watch. But man, can you imagine if they win this game on Saturday and then Michigan State's coming? The vault is going to be like that Wisconsin game the last year they made the tournament, which was 2014. And I've been a Nebraska basketball fan. I wrote this the other day, but since 1991 when I moved to Nebraska, and I've seen 2 tournament teams. That's it. 1994 or maybe might have been 95. The Miracle Eric Piatkowski
Yep,
won the Big 8 championship, and then that 2014 team, which got the 11 seed and then lost to Baylor in the first round. So I've never seen a tournament win. So it would be great to get back there. But this is the most fun I've had as a basketball fan for Nebraska in a long time. And I just want this ride to keep going as long as it will go.
absolutely. And this team is so likable too. I mean, this team
Yeah.
really is like You have Greasel diving for loose balls. You have Kesey, who absolutely enjoys
Just looks
every
like the
single
happiest
shaft.
person in the world, though. Just like always has a smile on his face. Like I just love that dude. I just
Yeah.
want to be that guy's friend.
Yeah, I just want to be as happy as Kesey is every single day. He just loves life. He
Yeah.
loves playing basketball. He gets so excited. You have Derek Walker absolutely, you know, driving the ball inside, not giving up. It's just a fun team to watch. And I think that plays a big part in it too. And, I hate to, go back to this, but imagine if they won that Purdue game back in
Oh, I
December.
know. Oh, I know.
16
We'd be, I mean, they'd probably be on at least somewhere on the bracketology chart, not maybe in, but they'd be on that level, one of the teams close, because, yeah, I mean, that I do think about that. If that ref wouldn't have made that horrible call and we could have maybe won that game, but
because
oh
that place
well,
was loud. Pinnacle Bank was
yeah.
loud that day, and I think it's gonna get louder over these next couple of days here. And Fred Hoiberg has definitely earned at least another year with this program because I think he's beginning to see, and we've talked about it. He's kind of established an identity for the Big Ten, and as weird as it sounds, it seems like once Bandamel and Gary went down, this team really kind of, I don't know, found their stride, or something within them made them, kind of just play at a higher level. And I hate to see anybody injured, of course, but it seems like, you know, whatever happened, or whatever flipped that switch, it's starting to work, and it is working.
And I just think it's one of the best coaching jobs that Fred's done,
Yeah.
and he has even some people have started to throw his name out there as Big Ten Coach of the Year. I mean, if this team finishes 10-10 in the Big Ten, then maybe he is Big Ten Coach of the Year. Honestly, with where this program has been, and I know Chris Collins in Northwestern, have had a great year this year, but he's taken that team to the tournament before. Like this is Nebraska going 10-10 in the Big Ten. That's like I really can't. It's hard to even put that kind of into perspective with where they've been the last few years. And I just don't think you can give enough credit for him. And it gave me goosebumps. He sat up there and said, everybody wanted to talk about, what has been or what could have been with this team, and I said, let's think about what could still be, and that just the way he said that gave me goosebumps. And I know it really has impacted this team. And so it's been great to see him finally have success. And I know the Nebraska faithful is going to be, coming out strong on Saturday. The women are playing at home on Sunday. And, if the women win, they're going to be in a nice spot maybe to get in the NCAA tournament. So I know the vault is going to be packed for that game too. And honestly, when it comes to men's and women's basketball and women's sports, basketball and volleyball, I don't know that there's a better fan base out there than Nebraska.
Yeah, the women's sports are absolutely
I mean,
fantastic.
it's crazy how many people pack that place for,
Yeah.
and they're not even ranked this year. That's not, I mean, they're a solid team, but it's just, I mean, there's teams. I know the Iowa and the Big Ten is really great for women's basketball attendance, but just the level of basketball support for like the amount of wins, in Nebraska, it's to me, it's just unrivaled.
Yeah, it really is. There's tons of fan support, and you know, people are just like so excited to see, all these teams. And it's like one big community. It really is when they come to see these games. And they're giving fans, something to cheer about, and they're giving fans something to cheer for. And it's been a while, in terms of basketball, men's basketball, that we could say that. And, hopefully the women can really finish strong here and, continue on, with postseason play. But it's certainly taking our mind off of baseball. Baseball, I don't know what's going on with baseball, but they're not giving us anything to cheer about. And it's
Not yet,
kind of
no.
sad. Not yet.
Yeah.
Season's still long, but eh, I don't know.
Baseball is one of those too where sometimes you can start real slow, and I mean, we'll see. I still have faith in these guys, to be in the mix here in the Big Ten, and we'll see. It would be great to get this team back to the NCAA tournament as well, and hopefully Will Bolton, the guys. They did get a tie the other day. I really didn't understand. I mean, I guess the travel. I got it with the time concerns, and maybe they were trying to get it. I'm not really sure, but I
Yeah,
didn't
because it
quite
was
like
like
the tie.
16-16,
Yeah, what kind of baseball game is that, man?
that is an indictment on our pitching more so than I've ever seen one. 16-16, no wonder we're losing
Uh,
games.
I know, and the pitching actually is supposed to be good. So that's what
Yeah.
it's early season college baseball can be kind of weird. We'll see. I think we'll have a better handle on this team in a couple of weeks, but yeah, not a great start, so
I wouldn't yell at my teammates, but if I was, a catcher or somebody in the lineup, I would be pissed that my pitching staff gave up 16 runs while we scored
yeah,
16 and didn't get a win.
that's like video game
Yeah.
stuff right there, man.
Yeah, that's some MLB The Show stuff right there.
Yeah, like early, yeah, because it's more realistic now. So I don't know if you even get 16-16 game anymore.
Just another
But
day in Nebraska athletics. Never
yeah,
boring, as we like to say, right?
it never is boring, and so that's a great segue to make sure you hit subscribe to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our any Nebraska news or our hard hitting analysis or our opinions. So we do try to come out with the analysis and the opinions, and we love this Nebraska Cornhusker community and all
We
you
do.
guys that are part of it. So make sure you get into the comment section. Let us know what you think about the Carter Nelson, Dylan Raiola, baseball, basketball, whatever. We love to get in and interact with you guys, and hit the like button, smash that subscribe, and we'll be back on Monday to talk about everything that happened this weekend. So go Huskers, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.